I mean, are you tall enough there?
I think so. Is that better?
No. We have a really fun time trying to get both of us in frame because there's only just a slight height discrepancy between the two of us.
I'm standing on a hill.
Yeah, and it works out. Howdy folks, Reagan and Megan with the GWP Homestead, and we thought this would be a great opportunity to do, I don't know, a little question and answer Q&A session. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Has it been a couple of years since we've done one? Probably, yeah. It's been a hot minute. So we put up a post, asked, hey, if you got questions for us, well, want to know what we're doing around here on the farm, put them up. And we have a few questions, and so, hey, let's answer them. It is November, and I am almost certain there are baby birds floating around here. It's crazy. All right, question number 1. Are you planning to garden next year? And if so, what are you looking forward to, and what will you do differently?
So I'm probably always going to garden in some capacity. I'm not very good at it. Eventually I'll figure it out.
And you're getting better.
I am getting better. Every year I have something that's successful. Don't really worry about starting my own seeds right now. I buy starts. Starts are given to me. I may plant a handful of seeds, but for the most part, I don't buy starts. I'm not good at it. Don't have the space for it. But probably most excited to do more herbs. My herbs did really good. I want to do some more. I kind of figured out which herbs I actually need more plants of and which kind of generate I can clip and let them keep going. We plan on, fingers crossed, being able to get a couple metal beds versus our wood raised beds.
The wood ones that we built a couple of years ago are okay, maybe. They're not very good at all. They've kind of gotten the job done, letting us get our feet wet, just kind of dipping a toe, I guess, in the garden bed, in the gardening scene, but it's not great.
We figured out too, our cardboard between our beds worked really great, so I'm hoping to expand that to the whole bed, or my whole garden area, and then be able to actually mulch it, now that we know the cardboard works really well.
For us, the biggest thing has been keeping all the weeds and everything at bay. We had trouble with our mower this summer. That was just a mess, and so half the time the yard didn't get mowed, and then when the garden got overgrown because the yard didn't get mowed, it just all fell apart. And it's really hard, and it's hard when you're doing a lot of things. It's hard to stay on top of everything. And sometimes whenever things start to slip and you're like, well, I'm never going to get caught back up in this because it's 95 degrees and it's hot and I don't want to deal with it. It's easy to fall out of it. So part of the issue for us is just getting going with it and finding a way to stick it out, making it easier on us to stick it out.
We definitely need a low maintenance garden.
Yeah.
So that's why having the mulch between the beds is great for us. The raised beds are great for us. I don't mind watering the garden every night because that's not a chore that takes a lot of time. When I'm out there, I don't mind plucking some weeds, but it still has to be low maintenance. We have 3 kids. We still do sports. We still are busy like that. That was part of the issue this year is we had a lot of baseball. But I do still plan on gardening. I learned a lot. Definitely want to get some metal beds. Definitely want to make sure we can mulch between a lot of our beds.
Big deal with the mulch.
Big deal. Like that is a top priority. Most of our beds now we do have filled with soil, so that we'll still have to add some, but it's going to be a lot better than it has been.
So yes, we are planning on gardening and we are looking forward to it. Hopefully we get some garlic in the ground soon. You'd think being November it would be too late almost to get some of that started, but it's really warm. I mean, it's pretty warm now. It's going to be even warmer like next week.
Yeah, it's been 85 degrees still several days and can't plant garlic yet.
No fun. Question number 2. What is your favorite goat product, whether dairy or meat, that you have made?
So we have not processed any of our male goats, so it's not going to be a meat for me. Heather.
Sage and Stone. Mm-hmm. Sage and Stone.
Why do I always want to say Heather?
I don't know. It's funny.
We've had some of their goat, and we did like it. They smoked it, and it was delicious. It was tender and fall apart. As far as the dairy for us, I don't know if I have a favorite because I like the versatility of it. I've made cheese, I've made yogurt, I've made ice cream.
Okay, my favorite thing are the cheese logs, okay? Homemade goat milk mozzarella cheese, and she just makes it in a big chunk, slices it, breads it, deep fries it. Oh, I can't hit a high note, but just imagine angelic singing because it is amazing.
So I don't know if I have a favorite. I knew what he was going to say. I like the satisfaction of all of it because it's something I worked really hard from buying the, picking the goats and milking the goats and, perfecting their feed and their minerals to the point where we've had babies and we have milk, and then my family can eat that milk and drink that milk. And I do get a lot of joy out of when my kids essentially brag about the fact they drink goat milk, just the plain goat milk. They kind of brag about it sometimes, and that is really fun for me. So I don't know if I have a favorite. I like all of it.
Kind of like the garden. It took us a minute to kind of get going with the goat milk. When we first brought dairy goats home, at first we brought them home in milk, brought one home in milk, and it just didn't go great.
Yep.
And then it kind of took us a little bit of time to get going with it. And then once she was able to get in a rhythm, I don't help out with the milking process. That's not my thing. Once she got in a rhythm with it, it has been a whole lot better. We're hoping the garden, kind of like that, is the same situation. But, it takes time. So if you're trying to get into it and it doesn't go perfectly, if it doesn't go like you see her doing it or some of these other YouTube folks, if you watch them, you see them doing it. If it doesn't work out quite like them at first, try not to be discouraged too much, because it takes time. And everybody moves at their own speed, at their own pace. Try not to get discouraged too much.
I brought one dairy goat home in milk, and she ended up drying out because of the stress of the move.
Yep.
Bought a second one bred, and I agreed to buy her bred so she would then have have babies and I could milk her. And then a week before I brought her home.
Oh, she had 4 babies too.
She had 4 babies. Yeah, that's another video if you want to go watch it. But a week before I brought her home, I found out I was pregnant with Deacon, and
she's not a very good pregnant person.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, this is like surviving, and it's fine.
Yeah, I don't pregnant well. I don't. So that whole year was then on hold. Pause on it. I took care of them. I had them. I loved them. I learned a lot about their care in that time frame. I had some babies, which was great experience without the stress of the milking. And then kept going. And then I had a newborn and it was milk, so that was slow. But we got there, and we're doing great now in milk. When we're in milk, we're dry right now, and that's something we're transitioning to. So, like you said, don't get discouraged if you bring home a dairy goat and then it just goes awful at first, or give it time. It takes time.
Yep. Question number 3. What is your favorite new skill you've learned since starting the homestead? I'm going to go ahead and answer this one first. So for me, all right, I already did woodworking. I already like to play out in the shop and build stuff and tinker with things and work on trucks. And I didn't have any tractors, I guess, at that point. I still don't really work on it. But I already like to do all that stuff. So learning how to fence and learning how to do things like that was already things that I kind of knew how to do. I already had that desire in it for me. The biggest change that's happened for me since we started homesteading was whenever we picked up a camera. We didn't start with the GoPro. We started with just using an iPhone. That was the biggest thing for me, is learning how to capture what you wanted to see and capture it in an interesting way, and then start framing a video, how to tell a story with that. That was the biggest change for me. And it's the biggest... And just doing that, it's helped out in other ways too. We'll get into that here in a minute, but it's just it's different, and it's a different kind of skill set, because I like to tell people I'm the least technologically savvy millennial that exists. Maybe second worst, because she's probably worse than I am. I started with a phone, and this is all I started with, and we got a little phone clip, and we had a little tripod, and just set this thing up and just started recording, and it just. You don't have to, I edited on my phone for years. It didn't take a huge investment. People want to spend a bunch of money on equipment. People want to spend a bunch of money on different types of things. You don't need all that. If you have a phone that will take video and it has editing, free editing program most likely built into it, you can get started with that. So for me, the biggest skill set was the video, the technology, the editing part of it. And it all took time. But that's our favorite. That's my favorite skill that I've learned.
And that's not a traditional homestead skill, but for us it was kind of a necessary one to give us both the encouragement to do some of this.
It's neat. I spent so much time watching YouTube. I kind of wanted to participate in the landscape of it. So yeah, it's just fun. It's fun. It's a fun hobby, and it can be daunting sometimes because you got a schedule to maintain and do all those things. But it's You getting distracted there?
Your son. He's over there trying to mouth, and I don't know what he's trying to say, but it's not important. No one's dying, no one's bleeding, they're fine.
Yeah. All right, well, that's mine. What about you? What's your favorite?
Probably anything to do with the food preservation and self-sustainability. So I did not grow up on a farm. the only animals I've ever had in my life are pets. I've had dogs, cats, lizards, hamsters, guinea pigs, but never livestock. I always wanted livestock. I loved it, but I've never had that kind of thing. So getting into how to grow our own meat through cows and dairy goats, chickens, and then that, and also turning, the goat milk into a product, how to make sure we're raising these animals appropriately, and then not vice versa, but along those same lines, how to can produce and freeze eggs even, because that's something you don't think about until you have 100 eggs sitting on your counter. You're like, what am I going to do? And figuring out how to save those so we had them in the winter with minimum equipment. I do not have a big fancy freeze dryer. I want one, but I don't have one right now. So how do I preserve this food without that kind of stuff? I can freeze it, I can it, and I love being able to do that now. And I don't grow a ton of produce, but I figured out there's an auction down the road from me, I've talked about in other videos, and going down there and buying produce for cheap and then turning that into stuff that's in my cans now. That is being our dinner. So that's been something. I love the food preservation, being able to feed my family with stuff either I've handled in some way, whether that was buying at the auction and preserving it. The chicken eggs are whole chickens that we save, and being able to have that. We started homesteading in 2020, right as we were kind of coming out of those food shortages, and that was something I'm like, I'm never doing this again. I don't have 25 years worth of food by no means, but I know no matter what, our biggest consumable product we use every day is meat.
Yep.
Every dinner has a pretty heavy portion of protein on our plate, and so knowing that I can go to my freezers and I probably have a year's worth of meat in there. Now I may have to get creative on how I cook it, but a year's worth of meat in my freezers that we rotate through is amazing. Some of that is the cows we produce, some of that is the whole chicken, some of that is supplemented in from buying stuff from bulk chicken from the butcher. Having that is the best thing for me, is the food preservation and the food production.
Question number 4. What are some of your long-term homestead dreams or homestead goals, like future buildings, critters, business? What's your dream?
The biggest dream for me, animal-wise, is I want a Jersey cow.
Yes.
I want a Jersey cow so bad I can't stand it. I love my goat milk. Yes, I love my goat milk. The next biggest product we consume on our homestead is butter. Butter's expensive. Even with getting like a cream separator, which you need to really do goat milk butter, we wouldn't produce enough. When I say we use butter, we use a stick probably every 2 days, and even more when the kids are home. We eat a lot of butter.
A lot. It's delicious.
I don't.
Next to having a salt mine here on the property, that would probably save us the most money.
It would. And being able to produce butter, and the fact that we love seasoned butter. I love to have my seasoned butter, my cowboy butter, my cinnamon, honey butter, and those kind of butters. I love having them. I would love to be able to put those back. And with having those, I would love to be able to give those as gifts to people and take them to things. So a Jersey cow is my ultimate dream, that just is. And I would still have my goats because I love them too. The next thing for me is I really do want to sell my lotion and soap. And so for a business side of it, that's what I want to be able to do. So I want to sell the lotion and the soap.
Does that mean having a website? Does that mean having some kind of borrowed storefront here in the local community?
We got some things in the works, so hopefully that pans out good. But that's the biggest business / dream animal. The building would be a better barn.
Yeah.
A barn that I designed for me.
Well, and for me, it's hard to, I don't know, you look around and we have a bunch of things that need to take place. I would just love to have some equipment, like reliable equipment that we could do some real work with and get some of these fence rows cleaned up better and take back some of the, you know what? How about this? Next year, 2025, I want to run prescribed fire through here, okay? And I want to get the equipment for it, the drip torches, and some fire retardant clothing that's not polyester denim, so it don't melt to my skin and do all that fun stuff. I want to do that because we have privet, and fire loves to eat privet, and privet hates fire. They're mortal enemies. They're sworn. I'm kidding, but I want to do that so bad. So that's my goal.
If you've been here for a while, you know everything we've done here we have done with minimal tools, minimal
Know-how.
Know-how, minimal, everything, and we have a lot of videos on how do we do this with what we have on hand.
Yep.
Pallets, gifted fences, or fence like wire.
Yeah.
Everything has been what we had on hand.
Scraping by the skin of our teeth trying to make it work. I know a lot of you guys can relate to that. So,
yeah.
You know what? If it ever seems relatable, it's because, we're doing the same thing you are.
Yeah. We do not have a big tractor. We use a lawnmower for our ATV and a trailer, and that's been tore up.
Yeah. So we'd love to have some reliable equipment that we could actually do. If you happen to be a equipment supplier watching our video and you want to participate here in what we're doing on the GWP Homestead, then shoot me an email. It's in it's on our channel, so holler. But yeah, we want to do that. We've got some plans to build kind of a preserving room in the shop, somewhere that is climate conditioned. We keep the freezers out of the more intense summer heat. It would be in a conditioned space by itself, and have some more pantry kind of space. Will that happen next year? No, probably not, but it's on the agenda for the future. So things like that. Want to be able to better maintain the land that we have, and just try to do the best we can with what we got.
Me and Reagan are let's dive in head first in things, and that's what we did here. And not that we got in trouble with it, it's just some stuff that we could have set ourselves up better for.
And that's a perfect way to segue into question 5. If you, what would you do differently if you started this today?
So if you take out the money and the equation, and you had an unlimited budget in that question, I would have came in, stripped all the fences down, and started a perimeter fence from scratch.
Yeah, and that would have to be when you're shopping for land. And this is what we did. We knew we had fences, and we knew we wanted to move. We kind of needed to move at that point, and it worked out great because we bought right before housing prices skyrocketed in 2020. Like, the timing aspect of it worked out great. But we just saw there's fences and said, yep, it'll be fine. And then once you get moved in, you notice it's just none of this stuff. This is set up on a board. The camera is clipped to a board right here. If you leaned on it or breathe on it too hard, it will come down. It's already detached down here at this end, okay? So none of this stuff is in good shape. The best ones we have are the ones that we've done, and it's just, there's not enough. It takes too much time. It's really hard to do with what we've been doing, and that's why we haven't really done a whole lot of it. And that's okay.
We were excited that it was cross fence, which means we had 3 pastures, so rotational grazing should have been easy, except those fences were in terrible shape because they had horses and they let them get grown up, because apparently horses don't care.
And they have not gotten better since we've done it, except where we have really focused on it. It hasn't gotten better since we've been here, so we're not throwing shade at anybody. It's just, it's tough.
So like I said, if you take out the budget part of it and it's unlimited, I would have came in, paid a crew to come in, clear my fences out, and put all perimeter fences up. That way I could then go in and make smaller pastures and rotate grazing more effectively.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was going to say too. It'd be the same thing. Now this is question 6. This is kind of a very specific question. This person asked, what are your thoughts on Alpines or Oberhasli goats? And I guess I'll go ahead and rephrase that too. Why do you have Nigerian dwarfs and Nubians?
So when I looked into dairy goats, immediately I knew I wanted Nigerian dwarfs or Nubians, and it came down to I could find Nigerian dwarfs quicker. I like them because of their butterfat content, and I like them because of their size. I have little kids. When I was looking, we knew we were going to have a third, so that meant I was going to have an infant at some point around these animals, and I liked their size. I liked their personalities from what I was reading, and I could find them. They're relatively reasonably priced, depending on what you look at. I'm not going to lie. Nubians, the next thing is I loved their ears. They had, I love a good ear. I liked the production of them, as how much they would make for their goat. I liked their personalities again. They're my favorite, and some of it is based on the fact that I love their ears.
Yeah. And they're easier to find in our area. So with Alpines or Oberhaslis, if you can find them in your area and you can tell that, I guess the genetics are fine.
Yep.
Sometimes you can get into, a lot of people in your local place may have a certain thing, but the genetics are kind of weird and they're not quite as parasite resistant as you want. And can you get vet support? I guess not that there's a ton of difference from that aspect of it, but do you have a veterinarian in the area that can work on your things? So there's nothing wrong with them. Absolutely not. It's just we don't have them here.
For my example on that is boar goats around in our area. Like, we don't have boars, obviously. We don't raise a meat goat. Boar goats, you do not want them in our area because they have been bred and they are so parasite ridden.
Yeah.
That you cannot get them where they're hardy because of the way they've been bred here and there, and it is what it is. And a lot of people actually in our area get scared when they hear the word goat because they're used to those boar goats that are just parasite ridden and you can't keep them healthy. I do not have any experience with either of those two breeds. I've heard good things from social media on people that own them. I just don't have them.
Yep.
I can find a few Nubians here and there. I can find Nigerians all day long in our area. So that's what I went with.
And it can also make it hard to sell them sometimes.
Yep.
Because if you have an animal, you got to figure out what are you going to do with it one day, because you can't just accumulate them all. If you have too many of one thing, they can be harder to sell, or you may not bring quite market value, what maybe it would be worth somewhere else where it's harder to find those certain things. But it's just kind of a trade-off. Are you in it for that reason? Are you...
And that's what happened to us a little bit with the Nigerians. When we first got them, the price of them was kind of high. And then as soon as I started trying to sell babies, everyone was selling babies and it nosedived.
Yep.
I can still sell them for a good price. I raise good quality animals that are parasite, not completely resistant, but very hardy animals.
Pretty hardy. Yep.
They're pretty hardy. My Nigerians are great. My Nubians that I breed are very hardy because I'm crossing them with my really hardy Nigerian buck. And that's one reason I decided to go ahead and go with mini Nubians, was because it's going to be a little easier to sell because they are going to be a little smaller. Some people get intimidated when they see this big 200-pound animal, because your bucks could be up to 200 pounds on a full size, and sometimes even bigger. My does are not that big. My biggest Dawn is probably 160. Don't you think?
It's not a small animal.
She's not small by no means, but her temperament is great.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I do raise, hardy and attitude are big things, because once again, I have to be able to handle them. I am not a big person. I'm strong, but I'm not a big person, and I cannot pick up a goat that big. So attitude and personality are big for me too.
But you can transport a goat that size in the back of an SUV.
2 of them.
You can put 2. You don't need a trailer for it.
It ain't easy, but you can do it with some very careful maneuvering and tarp.
Anything is possible if you believe in yourself.
My poor car. It's seen so much.
All right, last question. Question number 7. This was not asked by anybody. This was asked by me. Why did the capsule sermons stop? So the reason those stopped, if you've been with us for a little bit, you know that we were putting up a 3 kind of to 5 minute long capsule sermon video. And my philosophy on that since we bought the house, certainly since we started the YouTube channel, the second video we ever put up was a little devotional of Megan and I sitting together just talking about some things. We want to use this land. God has blessed us with the ability to own this little piece of property. We can call it ours. It's a great way to teach our kids about the creation that God has made. And it's a big deal to us to get to be here and to get to share it. We want to cultivate it. We want to be good stewards of what God has blessed us with. And so part of that is, hey, we want to be able to tell people there's a lot of different schools of thought here, especially in the homesteading community, about naturalism or just different aspects of things, all right? And we want everybody to know that our flag is firmly planted in Jesus Christ and what he has done for us as our Lord and Savior. So I ended up surrendering to the ministry. I got called into preaching, right, back in March of this year, and that was a huge change for me. Was not expecting that at any point in my life, but God had other plans for me, and so I ended up doing surrendering that. God called me into it. I'm going to listen. Hey, if he made me, he's going to do all these different things for me. I'm going to do my best to listen and do what he tells me to do.
I knew he would get called into the ministry. I didn't have the realization that then I would be a preacher's wife until after it happened. So.
I'm always the last one to know, but that's okay. So anyway, we did that, started switching from calling them devotionals to calling them capsule sermons, just a little different phrase. I ended up spending a lot of time filling in, preaching. There's a lot of churches in our area that do not have pastors right now, and so I was doing what is called pulpit supply preaching. So you just go around filling in on Sundays. And about a month ago, whenever the capsule sermon stopped, we've been talking to a church. They'd asked me to consider coming on as their pastor and writing a sermon every week, doing all the different things. That 3 to 5 minute little study was it just threw up too many roadblocks. It was getting really hard to manage. Okay. Well, I'm glad to say that now I have been called to preach at that at that church. I am the pastor of that particular local church, and it's exciting, and it's totally different. And I'm glad to say too that I now know how I'm going to pick the capsule sermons back up. Now they're going to be a little different format. They may not be a sermon kind of format, and they're going to start back up later, but they will be starting back up. And if you've been watching that, if you've been praying for us, we both greatly appreciate that, because we know, we can tell. I mean, it's the truth. We know that you've been praying for us, and it's a huge deal. So if you haven't noticed a change here on the channel in that amount of time, you're not going to notice it, because nothing else is going to change. This is just another little thing that we get to do together as a family. It's a big deal. We're really happy. What?
Nothing.
Yeah, it's exciting. It really is. So that's why those stopped, but they will be picking back up. I'm glad to say, because I didn't want to stop them. It was just, how do you manage the time? How do you give all these different things the attention that they need? Because everything requires a lot of attention. How do you go to work? How do you take care of the farm animals? How do you be a husband and a father? How do you? It's just so much, right? There's so many things. But that's why those stopped. They will be coming back. I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time figuring out how exactly all that's going to come together, but it will. And I'm really thankful. God's blessed us, and it's just great. Anything else you want to say? Mm-hmm. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us today. We'll be doing this again. I don't know when, but soon, hopefully.
Actually, I have a question for everyone.
Yeah, this is good.
I need some ideas on what to do for my learn something skill.
Yes, December.
Yep.
November.
Everything that I had originally brainstormed, I have done. So, if you have some ideas on something that you have done and you think I would enjoy doing, shoot me an idea.
Yep, drop it down below.
Or if you've seen me do something that you would like me to make a video on, that too.
It takes a lot of time to come up with ideas. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
So if you see something, if you know something, drop it down in the comments below. My name is Reagan.
I'm Megan.
This is the GWP Homestead. We'll see y'all soon.
Bye, guys.